Starting. Live! Says I'm live. You guys see me? I am live here on YouTube today. We are going to be talking about the switch I'm making from Panasonic over to Sony. We're going to jump into that here. We are hanging out a little bit live, so if you're watching this after the fact, we're just going to get in here for probably about 60 seconds, let a couple of people join up before we start hitting it too hard and too heavy. But yeah, skip ahead a bit if you're watching this after the fact live. We just want to interact, talk a little bit, I guess tonight, about the switch from Panasonic I'm making to Sony, why I'm doing that, why you shouldn't necessarily do that if you've already bought this, and a few other things. Just want to say hello to a few people. Smarty TV, fourth. I think the three before were before the show. Chimix, hi. Welcome to the show on this fine Thursday evening. So good of you guys to come hang out. Is it Thursday? It's Thursday. I believe that it is Thursday. Having a fun day. Hope you guys had a good day. Are out there creating some really good content. What else is going on in the world that we can talk about for a minute or two while people are joining? How about this? So many people spend way too much time on YouTube worrying about all the right gear and end up getting crippled and never actually going and creating content because they're waiting to have the perfect this or the perfect that or perfect that. Just get out there, shoot, start making some content. I am English TV. Hey, brother. Hey to you, too. Good stuff coming out of that channel, for sure, if you guys haven't checked that out. I think also, fellow Panasonic user? Can't remember. Fresh new tech, hey. Hey. Noder Gross Famille. I'm sure there's a proper way to say that. Like your vlogs, keep up the good work. Thank you very much. A big part of why I'm being able to do this is because so many of the people that follow my channel follow me for the Panasonic reasons, but some of you guys follow along for the vlogs, or I don't know what reasons. What reasons do you guys follow along for the channel? Curious with the people that's hanging out. Jonathan Rockwell says, what's up? What's up to you too? I'm English TV says, yeah, I believe what you're saying. Yeah, I agree, that's me now. Jonathan, you need to get out there and start creating more content. Is that you? Talk a little bit about that. Logan Bogdan, thoughts on Regina Pat's playoffs and hosting Memorial Cup next year? We got viewers from all around the world, but our hockey team, which is like, I think 16 to 20-year-olds, are crushing this year. Hockey's a big deal in Canada. Regina Pats, I think they're going to go all the way. I hope so. Splendid Blended says, you got to check out my channel. Justin, we're doing big things with the G85. That is awesome to hear. I still believe very strongly in the G85. It is a fantastic camera. We're going to talk about that in another minute or two. I wonder if I refresh this page if it'll tell me how many people here are on and are live. Oh, loud. Turn that off. Or maybe it's over here. I can never remember. Oh, we're streaming. Peak concurrent, 19 people. You guys are hanging out already. That is super cool to see. I'm English TV. Yes, I'm an avid Panasonic user, but I wish Canon would give us something that's not so damn expensive. Sarah Steinhauser. I'm nervous to start filming myself. I just don't know where to begin. Here's the thing that you all need to know if you haven't started creating content already. It's going to suck at first because we all start creating sucky content and you have to get through the suckiness until it ends up getting good. So just own the suckiness, but know that we all started at 0 subscribers and terrible. And the faster that you create content and the faster you put it out there, the faster it gets better. Now, if you're waiting and you kind of make content and you don't put it out there, and you make content and don't put it out there because you don't think it's good enough, you're actually slowing down the process because you don't open yourself up to some really valuable feedback that is going to help you to get better. Excuse me. So, Sarah, where to start? You just got to turn on the camera, start recording, start talking, and know that it's okay that it's not good in the beginning, and you're not going to ruin anything because that's where we all started, and you progressively get better. Vlog 001 for me is terrible. Out of focus, not very good at all, but it got better, and still lots of vlogs I put out, I'm like, that one wasn't that good. But I still keep putting it out because every once in a while you hit a magical one that is amazing. Amazing. That's right, Splendid Blended. Sarah, just start. Fresh New Tech says Panasonic is the best. It's the best for some people. Absolutely. It's amazing. Ben Aqua G85 for life, or maybe not. Curious about the switch to Sony. We're going to jump into that. Seth Gardner says, are you gay? No. No, I'm married with 3 kids, but thanks for the question. What else? Should we get into this? I think we've got a little bit of an audience here. So let me start by saying there are lots of people. Oh, hold on. I've got some good comments. Notre gross familial. I wish I knew how to say that. It means our big family. That's awesome. Videos in my 6 kids. 6 kids? I have 3 and I feel like I'm dying. You've got 6? Actually, I think once you get to enough of them, they start entertaining each other. Ends up being good. Logan Bogdan, Easter plans, family, staying home. Carlos Ruiz says, what software would you recommend to edit videos? And I would say whatever you can start with. It doesn't really matter. Windows has Windows Movie Maker. Start there until you can't do anymore. Mac has iMovie. Start there. I use Premiere. I downloaded the trial version of Final Cut Pro X to try it. I really like that magnetic timeline, but there's some other things in there that are just confusing. But honestly, you just have to put the time in to learn any system. I think Premiere is great because I put in the time to learn Premiere, and I'm struggling with Final Cut Pro X. But if I watched a few videos, did a little bit of learning, I would be absolutely fine on that for sure. I'm English TV says Casey is using an a6500, but I'm not sure what type of lens he used to get such a wide angle shot with that camera. I will show you. Ben Aqua says I'm gay. Perfect. Hillcross Vlog says, what's up, Justin? What is up to you, too? We got a collab on something. I haven't actually checked out your channel in a little while, Hillcross. Just down the street, you were, like, growing on pace with me for a long time, so I'm sure you're crushing it. Jeff Brown says, what's your full-time job? I co-own a business called Pigeon Social, where we help businesses market in the new world and all this like crazy digital, social, all the stuff that we do now to be able to survive there. So Seth Gardner says, keep up the content, man. Love watching it. Thanks, Seth. I really appreciate it. Brian Simnani says, 4 o'clock in the morning here, but a live stream from you is worth staying up for. Wow. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that so much. Let's jump in here. I'll get back to the comments in a section because we actually have to talk about what we want to talk about. Yes, I have made the decision to switch from Panasonic over to Sony. Now, here's the thing about cameras. There is no one perfect camera. There's not even one perfect camera for me. I'm doing this as something to try because I think it's going to alleviate a couple of my pain points, maybe a little bit more than this. But honestly, I wouldn't have picked differently if I was to go back and start my whole journey all over again. I still would have started in the Panasonic realm. And here's a little bit why. So we have to talk about a little bit of the pros and cons of different platforms. We've got Canon, which the pros of Canon are they focus wonderfully. Their lenses are relatively inexpensive. They have lots of great cheap lens options. But they're big, they're heavy, and they don't shoot 4K, which is not necessarily a deal breaker, but I like having that ability, especially if I'm shooting like interview style videos. It just gives you the ability to like shoot wide, punch in, and fake like you have a couple of cameras. And that's a lot of value as opposed to buying a second body, which is going to be better, but still something that's neat. The other thing that annoys me about Canon is with a Canon camera, I could not do what we're doing right now because what I'm shooting with is my Panasonic G85, and it is going out into my streaming box and recording. But with Canon, you can't get a clean output, meaning there would be little icons all over the screen that you would be seeing because Canon doesn't do that unless you're really in their higher end cameras. And that is annoying about me. So that is Canon, the kind of ups and downs of Canon. On Panasonic, I would say the ups are everything, almost, meaning shoots 4K, they're lighter, they're easy to cart around. The quality on them is amazing. The bodies seem to hold up really well. They've got a good selection of lenses that aren't as cheap as Canon, but they aren't as expensive as something like Sony. And all around, I think they do an amazing job on video. But the one area that kills me is the focusing on it, which I've made work, and if you followed along my vlog journey, I did about 160-ish vlogs with mostly the Panasonic G7, the previous version of the G85, and I made the focusing work. And when you look at that, there's a couple of moments where it's out of focus, but generally speaking, it's in focus, but I did have to work a little bit harder for that. The other feature that Canon and Panasonic have that Sony doesn't really in any of their reasonable level ones is a flip out screen, which when you're doing vlogging or even these style of videos, I can see the screen right there. I can make sure that I'm framed up properly, and it makes things way, way more flexible and better. Now let's talk about Sony briefly. Sony, one thing is, it's expensive. Like, I just feel like their lenses are expensive. Now, they are honestly not that far off from Canon's like high-end lenses, but they don't have as many options for budget lenses. Even the bodies themselves are fairly expensive, and they don't have that flip-out screen. There's some reports of, I've got an a6500 here. It overheats if you shoot too long. That's never an issue with Panasonic. And it's got this like weird rolling shutter thing. When you move quickly, lines end up looking a little bit funny. But let's talk a bit about why I decided to make this switch. For me, a lot of the videos I'm doing now I'm not vlogging necessarily 5 days a week. I'm trying to vlog kind of 1 day a week. We've got our Facebook Live show, which you haven't checked that out. I think it's, especially this last week, horribly embarrassing for me. Like, crazy, crazy embarrassing. But it was just the way that it was fun, and it was live. It's called The Justin and Greg Show. You can go to facebook.com/Justin and Greg. That's one of the big things I'm doing. And then I guess a little bit more of me just talking to camera and hopefully just inspiring people to start their journey, as well as providing kind of tech reviews and tips and tricks and that kind of stuff. And so for what I am doing, I feel like Sony is going to serve me better, because the thing that was driving me a little bit crazy about the Panasonic side is its ability to keep up with autofocusing. Now, if you just did a static vlog style video like this, it doesn't matter because I've set it to manual focus, I've got the focus on, and it would work for that. But honestly, I would love to be able to take a box, stick it in the screen, have it focus on that for tech related stuff, to be able to like show a little bit more detail. And the Panasonics just struggle to be able to do that kind of focus move. And that's something that I found that I've wanted to do a lot and haven't been able to do. The other thing I want to be able to do is shoot a video where I'm talking into it and moving either far or close to the camera with the background being really blurry, and have it just nail that focus for me, because that's the style of video that I want to do. Now, the only reason that I'm able to actually get there and do that is because I actually put in the time to shoot and learn with something like this. And I will tell you, this camera does not have a flip out screen, and if you are starting out at all, I can't tell you how important having that flip out screen is, to be able to see what you're doing and give yourself some real-time feedback. Now, you don't want to be looking at the screen, because when I'm looking at the screen trying to talk to you, it ends up being a little bit awkward, because you can tell right now I'm not making eye contact with you. But it is a great way to be able to do things quicker when you're learning the tech side. And so because I've done 200 vlogs plus probably another 50 tech related videos, I think I can get away without that selfie screen when I'm out and about, because I know kind of what I'm going for. But I'm also going to be adding a little monitor on top of this a6500 for when I'm shooting in situations like that. So the other big thing is this setup is very expensive. Like, even for what it is, it just feels like it's expensive. I am selling a GH4, which is a very high-end body, my G85, and about 7 good quality lenses to get 1 body and 3 lenses. Now, some of that is because they're used, but some of it is that Sony is just a little bit more expensive. So if you're starting out, I don't think it's really even fair for me to say, hey, you should get the 6500 over the G85. The G85 with a great kit lens with more reach than what the Sony has is $1,000 US, whereas if you wanted a 6500 with a kit lens, what did I just look at? It's an extra $500, I think. At least $500, maybe it was $600. And so it's not even really apples to apples if you're starting out, because lots of people don't have that extra $600. Jump into the comments, let's see what people are saying. Let's see. How are you filming this? It looks great. Is there some sort of capture box? Yes, I'm the GH4 going into a Teradek video, and it basically takes any HDMI source and pushes it out to Facebook, YouTube. There's another video on my channel. Just search Teradek video, and I show you how I'm doing that. What made you switch? The big thing, Chava Marquez. Is it Chava? Anyway, the big thing was, recently I did a couple of videos where when I went and watched them afterwards, I was like, my face was out of focus half the time. And I want my face to be in focus for doing video. Now, I'm compromising in some other ways. It's going to cost me a little bit more money, but that is what I want, is I want my face to be in focus. I also want to do some videos where I'm like really pushing the background out of focus and just having my eyes in focus and being able to move and do that. And these cameras, they just can't do that, whereas the Sony will be able to do that. I'm English TV says, I really want the GH5, but the autofocus suffers like the rest of the brand. Yes, there have been lots of comments since people have been hearing that I'm switching, where they're saying, what about the GH5? Didn't you check that out? And if you guys follow Max Yuriev, his channel, he did some focus testing with the GH5, and it's still not good for autofocus. Now, the thing about lots of these cameras is a lot of filmmakers don't really use autofocus. Like, vlogging has not been the thing that all the people use, and so a lot of like GH4 and GH5 owners are making films where they're behind the camera and in control of that, and a lot of times doing manual focus, and so autofocus doesn't really matter. In those cases, these cameras are absolutely unbelievable, amazing, so good. What else? Splendid Blended. I'd like to live stream, but don't know how to get the footage uploaded live. You basically need a capture card, or you can use your phone. You can live stream from your phone, just get some lights, it'll be fine. But just search like capture cards, the same thing people use for doing like their video games or different things like that. You just need some kind of capture card. I'm English TV says, Splendid, use OBS. I think that's the on-body stabilization. I think that's what it is. Which, I mean, that's what the G85 is really nice. Especially, I love this 7 to 14 millimeter lens, which is what I use for vlogging. Once I added the in-body stabilization to this, it made it look even better. Sony has that built in. I'm going to actually unbox this stuff in a little bit and check it out. JW says, sensor stabilization on Sony is decent, but it will overheat. And that is one of the things that we've been hearing as a problem with this a6500 is it can shoot for about 20 to 30 minutes straight on 4K. Now, the thing for me is I don't need to shoot longer than that. Even when I'm doing a long tech video, I do it in a take, and it's 10 to 15 minutes on the longest part. And so I think that'll be fine. When you're vlogging, you're just kind of doing little clips here and there. You're not really shooting these really long things. If I was doing like interview style videos where it was like really long takes or something like that, then I think that would be something that I would be a little bit more worried about. But I also don't shoot in 4K all the time because it takes longer to edit, takes longer to output, and takes up a lot more footage, but I like to do it every once in a while. I think most people are watching on their phones. They're not quite there yet, but the ability to do that is nice in some situations, so I want to have the 4K in there. Alex Escobar says, I got my 10 to 18 for $650. That is a great deal. In Canada, those are a little bit over $1,000. I think it's like $750 US. We'll get into unboxing this in a little bit. I'm English TV says, I've contemplated Sony just because it's much better for vlogs, but have to be prepared for the upfront cost. Yeah, it's definitely more upfront cost, I would say, to get into the Sony platform. But it depends what kind of like vlog you're doing. Like if you're not like out and about, like running around and walking and talking, then I think something like this, like if you're doing Face by Megan, I think she just started on YouTube. She found this camera because of my channel or somebody recommended it. Anyway, she's got thousands following on Instagram. Super cool, but like makeup tutorial videos, you're not moving around all the time, and that can be a vlog where you're just talking to camera, but the camera is staying more static. In that case, I think something like this is awesome, an excellent choice, because too, when you pick it up and you do product shots, that in-body image stabilization is going to make some really nice, smooth shots. It's just that the focus struggles when you're like bouncing around or on your skateboard or, you know, really moving a lot. And you can just lock off focus on there and it is fine. Alex Escobar says, Jonathan Rockwell says, no, we're backing up. Andrew Val, I just bought a Canon 70D. I'm going to use it a vlog trip to Calgary next week. Should I buy a microphone and Gorillapod too? Andrew, getting into your content, you need to keep going. Great stuff. Just keep working on it. 70D is a great choice for vlogging, especially like starting out. You definitely should add a microphone. On the prairies here in Canada, it gets windy, and something like a Rode Video Mic Go is going to cut down on the wind, especially if you buy the extra like furry, it's called a Dead Cat. Honestly, that'll be great. Gorillapod 2, when you add a Gorillapod like this, it helps you just be more stable in your shots. And that ends up being really handy and helpful for the viewers as you're not bouncing around. So I think that's a great choice on camera for starting out, especially if you got a good deal on it. Grab these couple of accessories. It's not just for show because Casey Neistat does this. It's because it's practical in the way it helps you tell better stories. The Gorillapod is also amazing if you're doing time lapses or other shots that you can set it down, frame up your shot, and it looks great. So I think that's definitely a great idea. Jonathan Rockwell says, dang, I just got the GH5. The GH5 is an absolutely unbelievable, amazing camera. Being able to shoot 4K at 60 frames per second, so good. Being able to shoot all those high bitrate 1080p, being able to shoot in whatever the like flat color mode and the in-body like 8-bit, 10-bit, like it's an amazing camera, But I would say it's an amazing camera provided you need those kind of quality things. If you're just looking for an everyday YouTube camera, I don't know that you need a GH4 or a GH5. I don't know. Alex Escobar says, don't waste your money. I'm not sure what you're referring to in one of the previous comments, so I'd love to be able to comment on that. Jonathan Rockwell says, like 2 days ago. Again, decide, like, if you're making films, the GH5 is going to be amazing. If you need banging autofocus, maybe it's not the right choice for you, but you kind of just got to decide. Let's just stop here and say this. If you can't make amazing content with a GH5, the problem is not the camera. And there's people who blame the autofocus for things, but again, I used a G7 which didn't focus well for 170 vlogs, and I don't feel like the focus took away from the storytelling. Now, I had to learn around it a little bit to make sure that it was in focus. I just released a video about how you can get that focus better, but stop complaining about the tools. You can make good content with a phone. Yes, these things open up some other things, but honestly, you need to just get something and shoot and learn. So if you've ordered something, don't worry about it. Don't take it back. Don't go do a whole bunch more research. Don't spend another 20 or 30 hours deciding on something. Just get it and start making content. That way you're going to get better. You're going to learn what you like and don't like. Don't just take my word for it or somebody else's word for it. Just get out there and shoot and learn for yourselves. That's what I think about that. Alex Escobar says GH5 autofocus sucks. That 7-14 lens blows. I just sent it back. I disagree. I love it so much, especially vlogging. It fits so much in the frame. It's so tiny and compact. And because it's at f4, which means more stuff is in focus, it actually does a pretty good job of keeping focus. I found. It's not always perfect, but I've really enjoyed this lens. So, I mean, we're absolutely welcome to disagree. Autofocus, I guess, sucks in comparison to a Sony or Canon. Sure. Does it suck? I don't know that it sucks outright, but yeah, it's not great. It hunts a little. It's just the nature of contrast auto detection, which is the technology behind it. Won't get into that too much. I'm English TV. GH5 is great. I'm getting one, but I'll be using it mainly for my tech videos. For vlogging, you need something that captures your face. And again, like I said, I've made these systems work. They can work. You can make them work. You just got to be a little bit more on top of making sure you're in focus. Flip it to manual if you don't need it to be focusing on different things, but it will do it, just not as quickly or always as precisely. So, Angela Valley says, I'm thinking about upgrading to an IMAX movie camera for vlogs. You just need to find a tripod big enough. Haha, I hope that's a joke. It doesn't matter. Just vlog with whatever you can vlog with, but that's funny. Alex Escobar says, Sony is where it's at. Sure, Sony's where it's at, but again, no flip out screens. That's a problem for vlogging, especially if you're starting out and learning. Sony overheat. They've got horrible rolling shutter, it looks like, and the kind of the jello-y effect. I'm curious to see how bad it is. I will return it if it's unwatchable. Hopefully not. I wanted to look at getting a full-frame camera. Again, it came from full-frame photography, but like, yo, that is so expensive. Like, if I wanted a, say, A7R2 with a good, like, 16 to 35 vlogging lens, I think I'm in Canada here. I'm at about $5 or $6 grand just to get started. So, crazy. I really like what Sony's doing. Their style and picture looks good. I'm English TV says, your style of shooting will tell you what type of camera system you need. That is 100% true. Is you do have to figure out what you're shooting for and make a decision based on that. Every platform you're going to compromise. There's no one camera like, if you just buy this, you will be set across all things. It doesn't exist. I've spent so much time looking. I didn't necessarily want to move away from this platform. And even now, I could make great content with this stuff. In some ways, I'm hoping this makes it a little bit easier for me to be able to do it. And I also love trying new things and getting into new things and be able to learn that. So that is good. Ben Aqua says, I hear Sony has poop battery life though. I have also heard that. So you have to spend a Sony battery for the 6500 is $120 Canadian, probably 99 US. So if you need a couple of batteries, that's going to be really expensive. The screen also sucks on this in daylight, that it's apparently really hard to see in daylight. So again, compromises. I'm still choosing it because I think it can work for what I'm doing. Mr. DSGP says, how much are you selling the G85 for? I just bought it in December, so it's not very old. I'd probably be looking for about $1,000 Canadian. So I don't know what that works in US. You might be better just buying new, because right now in Canada it's $1,250 plus tax. That ends up being about $1,400. You save $400. I don't know what that works out there. If you're interested though, let me know. The battery you can get on Amazon for like $20. Yeah, you can get knockoff batteries. That's what I plan to do. But they're not always as good. I mean, I use knockoff batteries for these things. The battery life isn't as accurate, but that's fine. I don't want to butcher your name. Zygen? I don't know, Wang. Looking for a budget portrait lens. How's the Olympus 45mm f1.8? Magical. Get it. That's a great portrait lens. If you are shooting Panasonic, though, get the Panasonic 42.5 f1.7 because Panasonic lenses work with the cameras to do their depth from defocus technology, which speeds up focusing, and I think that's worth it. It also has in-body image stabilization in the Panasonic version. But if you're shooting Olympus or something else, Olympus one's great too. I'm English TV. I'm actually currently rendering a video comparing a Canon versus Panasonic G85 7 to 14mm. You can see what might work better for you if you're wanting to get started. Guys, check out I Am English TV. He's got good stuff on there. If you're not following him, I think he has way more subscribers than I do. Really cool he's hanging out. Jonathan Rockwell, would you suggest a Gorillapod or over a crane gimbal? Well, if you had the money for a gimbal, then I guess maybe get a gimbal. But lots of times I use this Gorillapod for like wrapping around stuff and putting my camera in places because I want to shoot a time lapse or put the camera in a funny spot. Whereas a gimbal, you basically have to be holding the gimbal all the time, but you're going to get way smoother handheld shots. If you're like a cinematic vlogger where you are shooting a lot of that and rarely talking to the camera, then sure, get a gimbal, especially if you have the money. But if you're more of a spend more time talking to the camera and maybe showing a little bit more of, I don't know, I guess it just depends on what you need. But this, I mean, is obviously a lot cheaper. I would love to have a gimbal too. But gimbals typically require batteries and you got to be very careful with them. This you don't have to be so careful with. Alex Escobar, did you just get all your Sony gear today, Justin? Yeah, I was going to Don's Photo Lab, I wanted this, and then they had every single lens I put on my list in there, other than an ultra-wide angle converter, and so I did just get it today. I haven't even opened these boxes yet. Alex Escobar says 4K is everything, 77D is better. I guess better than what? Does 77D shoot 4K? I don't think so. And if so, like, Canon has been cropping that so hard, doesn't even make sense. But yeah, 4K is cool. Jeff Brown, can you show us examples of super fast autofocus? Jeff, I would say go check out Max Yuryev's channel. How do I spell that? Max, M-A-X, Y-U-R-V-E-Y. And he's got some amazing autofocus examples comparing the G85, the GH5, the Sony a6500, and the new Olympus EM1 Mark II, which should have been a great focuser. Turns out it's not. Anyway, his channel is amazing. Great examples of autofocus. Alex Escobar says, get the Rode Video Micro. It's much better. Much better than the Video Mic Go? Could be. I haven't personally tried it, but I know that physically, the longer you make a microphone, the more directional it is, which for vlogging when you're far away is typically good, but the Rode Video Micro is cheap and I don't know, I haven't tried it. Can't say. Have you used the Video Mic Go too? I'm curious what you didn't like about the Video Mic Go versus the Video Micro. Jonathan Rockwell says, thank you, man. You're awesome. I appreciate you watching a lot. I was pointing at the side screen. You. Appreciate you, Jonathan. Thanks for hanging out and asking. Use GH4 versus new G85. JW asked. That's a great question, and I have both, a GH4 and a G85. I think it really just depends on whether, do you need high bit rate 1080p and flat shooting for color grading? Meaning, are you more of a cinematographer where you're not going to be putting it necessarily on YouTube, but on creating more like actual films? Then I would say the GH4 can make sense, or does make sense. The G85 shoots the same quality 4K as this does, minus a little bit of the color grading, but they're basically both shooting 100 megabit per second 4K. So they're similar in that regard, and this has the in-body image stabilization, which for photography, really nice, and for video ends up with much smoother shots, especially when it's working with the lenses, handheld. If you got a gimbal, yeah, it doesn't matter, but I guess I would really look at what you're doing there. If you don't need all those crazy high bit rates, I would get a G85. It's a little bit newer too, but battery life on the GH4 is better, but you can just buy extra batteries. So, Splendid Blended says G85 for sure, and seems like that ends up being good. Was I like way? I'm a little bit behind here. So many features. In-body image stabilization is the biggest deal. That's what Splendid Blended says. I agree. Alex Escobar says it sucks in low light. I haven't really found that. I shoot at ISO 6400. I mean, it's not going to be as good as something with a bigger sensor in theory, but never have I seen that it takes away necessarily from the filmmaking. A friend of mine is like a real filmmaker. He shoots with the GH4. He's had his films in the, not Brooklyn Film Festival, another one, Soho, and a number of film festivals. The thing is, yeah, it can get a little bit like grainy or things, but he actually likes the way that it looks and feels like it gives it an interesting or different quality. Now, I guess you can agree or disagree, but he's been able to tell great stories, even shooting at crazy high ISOs at night in New York, shooting films, and he's made it work. So, I mean, people talk about something sucking in low light. One, it's so much better than it was 5 years ago, every one of these cameras, and like, I don't mind a little bit of noise or grain, you know, however you want to be able to talk about that. I've never found that I haven't been able to get something, but obviously getting a faster lens, like, you know, if you're vlogging at night, get like the 15mm 1.7, throw a wide angle converter on that, and you're going to let in a lot more light and let the camera work not nearly as hard. So I think there's some ways around that. Yeah, like, and obviously, Splendid Blend says it does okay in low light. If you're shooting concerts or maybe frequent dark places, then Sony is better. Sony's a bigger sensor, so it's just a bigger funnel for it to get more light. So, yeah, there's definitely options there. English TV says, if you truly want to work on your vlogging, grab something like a Canon Vixia Mini X, play around with it. I shot with it for over 2 years, and it's great if you don't mind fisheye. Good to know. Lots of noise with that 7-14 in low light. Alex Escobar, yeah, absolutely. Like, you're at f4. I was shooting with Panasonic would send me gear, and so they sent me the 12mm 1.4. Obviously, way better in low light, but focused horribly. But that 15mm 1.7, I think that's like a magical little lens if you're going to be shooting a lot in low light. But some of it's honestly just being creative and finding the light sources, like whether it's a shop window or wherever the light is in the room, and getting there and shooting yourself in that. You know, try and help yourself. But if you want an ultra wide angle lens that is really great in low light, it is expensive and big. Whereas I would say the 15mm 1.7 is the exception to that. Nathan Holloman Vlog says, hi. Hey Nathan, thanks for joining. Bozo, wow, you really already have all that Sony stuff. This is Alan, by the way. Oh, hey Alan. Yeah, I went there over lunch to ask them just to see what they had in stock, and they had it all in stock. So I bought it. I warned them I was going to return it because some of my stuff's up on eBay. I just want to make sure it sells, but it's got so many watchers and bidders already. I'm fairly comfortable. We're going to open this up in a little bit. Grant Hansen, literally found your channel 5 minutes ago. Awesome channel. Thanks, Grant. I appreciate that. I think there's hopefully lots of helpful content there. I think maybe, like, I don't want to say what makes me different from maybe some other channels, but I think doing the vlog and having that much real world experience helped on the tech side for me to be able to speak a little bit more practically. Anyway, I hope that helps, so that you can watch the vlogs, and they just helped in me learning a little bit more of the craft. Just so you guys know, I knew zip zero nothing about video 13 months ago. I learned photography a year before that, so just over 2 years ago, I got my first 50mm prime lens for my Canon T3i and started taking more pictures. Ended up moving to Nikon, got into all like full frame 2.8 expensive Nikon glass. Learned that, sold that, got into Panasonic to learn video just over a year ago. Fronos Photo is a channel on here, Jared Polin. That's actually where I learned most of my photography and video stuff, through his guide. So, like, if you're, I don't know, like, you can learn this stuff fairly quickly. I don't pretend to be the best or even great. I'm maybe good and decent, but hopefully practical advice you can use, and know that it doesn't take long to be able to shoot something that is quality. You just got to get into it and practice it. Oh, comments are cracking up here. 77D is better than the 70D. Yes, it is. Except if you get a really cheap deal on the 70D, and then maybe you can put in some other lenses or other things. But yeah, 77D is newer. It's obviously going to be better. I've heard lots of good things about 77D. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. That would be an interesting thing. Grant Hansen says, for 4K video editing, is it absolutely necessary to have a Core i7 16GB, or can I use a Core i5 8GB? I'm looking at getting a MacBook Pro, but not sure what is necessary. Any advice is great. I had a 13-inch MacBook Pro i5 8GB, 2013, I think, and it could do 4K, but it did struggle with it a little bit. Actually, like, it struggled. It managed to do it, and I edited some 4K vlogs on it, but yeah, it wasn't as good. I've got a new 15-inch, one of the new ones here, and it is so much better. So if you're going to be editing 4K, I did most of it on a desktop PC for lots of my video editing. So I would say if you're planning to just shoot 4K every once in a while, sure, go for it, mostly in 1080p. My 13-inch ended up dying, and it just got repaired at the Apple store. I actually have to remember to call them. But apparently, if you work those things really, really hard with video editing, they can wear out. So that's what I know. Alex Escobar says, I live in New York. I've never been to New York. It is on my list of places to go. Chava says, Sony's exposed the image brighter. Oh, it's good to know. I haven't decided if I'm going to shoot. I'll probably shoot aperture priority. And then maybe dial it back a little, but that is good to know. Matt Leal, what up, Justin? Hey, Matt. Thanks for joining in. Jim Serrazio, good tips on the 7-14 lighting areas. Is there a way to remove the weird perimeter stretch on the 7-14 lens? No. There's just, I mean, you could probably do some correction in post, but whenever you make an ultra wide angle lens, they're going to distort in the corners, but the smaller you have to make that glass, the more that they distort. And because the lens is fairly compact, it's going to distort fairly hard in the corners. I personally love ultra wide distortion. I just think it looks so cool to a point. I hate GoPros. That's too much for me. But this one, for me, was kind of like the right amount of corner distortion. So, yeah, anyway, there's not really a way you can, I don't know, try and dial it back in post, but you're just asking a lot from a small piece of glass to get that much stuff in. So there's compromises that have to be made. Tokyo Joe Vlog says, congrats on 2K. Thank you very much. Do you guys know, you have to see them in my comments. They're often commenting Nico Gita vlogs. They're like Spanish vlogs in, Nico Gita, Nekojito blog. Spanish speaking in Japan. They just cracked 1 million subscribers, and somehow for some crazy reason they hang out on my channel, which I think is frankly amazing. Anyway, those guys are cool. I have no idea what they talk about though, but anyway, it's great. Demon Jolt says, have any suggestions for video cameras at $700 price point? Panasonic is the best I could find. I started on the Panasonic G7, and it will forever have a special place in my heart. If you can't make good content with the G7, you have bigger problems. Now, the focusing on it, but you can work your way around it. Check all my settings videos, especially get in that 1-point autofocus. And honestly, it's a great camera for starting out. Great camera. Great camera. It would be great for that. Team G7 for the win. Eric Timmer. You know it. You've been following along for a while. Great to see you, Eric. I'm English TV. I'm using a 5820K, 16 gigabytes of RAM. 2 GTX 970s for 4K video lasting about 15 minutes. I'm waiting about 3 hours for it to render at 10 megabytes. So I wonder if it gives you a look at it, what it would take to render. Yeah, I mean, render times on my PC, with not a very good video card, a 10-minute vlog was typically about an hour and a half to render on 4K. This one I think is about the same, an hour or so. Jeff Brown says, what Teradek model do you have? I have the Teradek VidiU. If I was to do it again, I would pay the extra $300 to get the VidiU Pro. Mostly just this thing doesn't quite have the processing power to be able to connect a wireless app to it while you're recording. It will mess up your recording, which is bizarre. I learned a lot of things about what this thing can't do. I still think it's a great box, but try and get the Pro model if you can. It's great. Eric Timmer, I added 4K on the latest Mac Mini, and it's doable. Great. Tokyo Joe Vlogs, nice haircut. Thank you. I did just chop off a lot of hair today. I think I look a little bit like an 80s Army recruit, but it's like a transition cut because my sides were short, and I do have to grow these out, and then, anyway, it's fine. Anyway, thank you. Appreciate it. For people just starting on YouTube, what would be your best piece of advice? Create as much content as you can, as quickly as you can. Don't second guess yourself. It's going to suck. Go look at vlog 001 of mine. Out of focus, terrible. It's going to start off tough. Just keep putting it out there. Keep practicing in front of the camera. And remember, dial up an extra 25 or 30% of energy. Try and be a little bit more on than, I'm not always talking like this and fast and, but it helps keep it entertaining. But you just got to practice. Practice, practice, practice. I'm English TV says, for me using G85 over Canon just meant I wanted a more closer look to my tech videos using a speed booster and Sigma 18-35 1.8 art lens look than the Canon fisheye look. 18-35 1.8, beautiful. Ted Borrell says, I agree with something magical about that wide angle slight edge distortion. I agree, Ted. Fred Ranger says, how are you going to work around the no flip screen? So great question. So if you're just tuning in, I'm switching from the Panasonic G85 to a Sony a6500 setup. And the big reason was because this was missing focus on my face. Now, this is a much more expensive setup, and so it's not like you can just compare apples to apples, but I'm able to make this work by trading all my gear to get over to this. The a6500, though, does not have a flip-out screen like this does, and so it is hard to frame yourself up. But when I've got an ultra-wide-angle lens where I'm never worried about whether my face is going to be in the frame or not when I'm out and about vlogging, and I'm going to get a screen on top for when I'm doing videos like this. But the big thing is that what was bothering me is I'm going, great, the G85 has a flip-out screen, and on the flip-out screen I can see that it's not following my face's focus. So it was kind of frustrating on that part. Whereas the a6500, I see lots of people focusing with it where they just set the area, put face detection on, and it just seems to consistently nail the focus on their face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to go behind the camera, set up the shot, come in front, and trust and believe that it's going to get focus on my face, and hopefully it'll work. Acoustic, other options for a wide-angle lens converter for 15mm f1.7. I couldn't find the Panasonic DNW GWC1 in my area. So the Nico Gita Vlogs, so they've got 1 million subscribers. They said in Japan they couldn't find that either, and I've had a bunch of people offering to buy mine. I just bought it on a whim, and maybe I should buy a whole bunch of them and send them to you. I don't know anything else about ultra or wide-angle converters. I just got that one because it was at the store and it was cheap and I wanted to try it, and it ended up working out great. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go see if I can buy a bunch on Amazon, and then I'll post a video and say you guys can buy them off me, and I'll send them to you. Jeff Brown says, cool, thanks for the video pro suggestion. You're welcome. Jim Serrazio, G7 with a pistol grip works for me. That's cool. That is cool. Well, Eric Timmer, wide angle, all the things. I love wide angle so much. Can't wait. I'm going to unbox this in a bit and show you what it is. I like that you read almost every comment. Thanks for the tips. Grant Hansen, you're well. Zarak Ritter, keep doing and doing and doing. That's the real magic behind everything. Absolutely. Do more. I think that's tattooed on Casey Neistat. Follow Gary Vaynerchuk if you want to go anywhere in the social media world. He's awesome. There's a vlog with me and him too. Casey doesn't look to be using flip screen, but he has done vlogs so long that he knows if he's in frame or not. LOL. And I think that's really important to say. The G85 or a G7 is a great place to start because you're going to learn so much in the process. And there's probably 10 different settings you need to master for video, whether that be, composition and framing. Focus is one of them, again, where these may struggle, but we're talking about aperture, we're talking about shutter speed, we're talking about, white balance, we're talking about talking to the camera, just the skill of being able. Are we back, you guys? I hope we're back. For some reason, the box turned off, and I'm not sure why. Somebody comment and let me know that you're back. I'm just going to refresh and see if people are viewing here right now. We had 50 people on here at a time. Yes, it's back. Okay, cool. Cool. I didn't mean for it to go away. I don't know what happened there. Have we been going? We've probably been going for a while. What time is it? Holy moly, you guys. Kept reading the page, kept saying the same thing. Okay, cool. I'm curious how many of you are live on here. Anyway, super cool. Back. You know what, you guys? Let's get into maybe just doing a quick unboxing of the Sony. And again, I hope what you guys... Oh, you guys didn't hear my answer to this. Between these options, what do you think is better? G7 on a monopod or G85 on hand with image stabilization? Thank you, sir. Is a question because on a budget. I hope I answered this, but the stream may have been off. If you're trying to make films, and I think I talked about this, the difference between G7 and G85, trying to make films, something that makes it cinematic is separating a person from the background, making the background blurry. And so if you're trying to make films, don't get the G85, get the G7 and invest in a 25mm 1.7 or something where you can begin to blur that background away from the person. I think that's a better spot to start. Also, image stabilization works when you're trying to keep things still, but when you're trying to do pans or raises or things, it kind of gets in the way. It depends what kind of what kind of video you're making. If you're trying to do a vlog, get a G85. Stabilization is good. Kit lens is better. What lights are you using? Ben Aqua says, I am using Aputure Amaran, the AL528 series of lights. They're inexpensive and they work great. But I've also found the Neewer, Neewer. I think they have a LED light. Here in Canada, it's $175. I tried it out. It's great too. 600 LED lights. Alex Escobar, what software are you using to use your DSLR act as a web camera? Teradek Video, it's not software, it's a little box that plugs in on the top. Guys, should we get into the Sony unboxing? Are we okay here? Everybody still hanging out? Or are y'all going to leave if I start unboxing? Maybe we'll take a couple more questions if you guys have any, or let me know if you're happy to get into the unboxing. We've been hanging out for a while here, you guys. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. I'm actually curious if we could see how many people are online here. I thought it said that for a bit. Anyway. Ring light. I actually like your ring light, I Am English TV. I really like your ring light. So, I'm just going to tell you what I picked for my Sony rig. I went for 3 lenses. These were typically the lenses I was using mostly on Panasonic. On Panasonic, the lens I used the most was the 7-14, which was here. That was the ultra-wide for vlogging, shooting interior shots. I thought it was super cool, so I got the 10-18 millimeter. What's cool about this is this one has the optical stabilization in this lens, and this has in-body image stabilization, so I'm hoping that ends up looking really smooth. What else did I get? I got the... Now, we need to talk about equivalent focal length. So the 7-14 is like a 14-28 millimeter on a full frame. This is like a 15-27 millimeter. So very similar in those. The other lens I would use all the time on Panasonic when I was shooting photos of people was the 42.5 1.7. It did a nice job of taking pictures of people's faces. That's a nice like portrait lens. So that is a 85 millimeter equivalent on full frame. This is a 50 millimeter 1.8, which with a crop sensor is a 75 millimeter, so similar. And this is my lens for taking pictures of people or shooting details of things where I really want to separate them away from the background. Also image stabilized in body, so that will be cool and very stable, allow me to shoot at low shutter speeds. The last lens that I got was a 16 millimeter 2.8. On the Panasonics, I love the Leica 15mm 1.7. That was like, became like my favorite lens for it's just such a beautiful lens on so many levels. So I'm going to try and get this 16mm, so that is a 30mm equivalent. This is a 24mm equivalent. It'll be close, but I like even wider. It is 2.8, so it won't, even with the crop factor, it won't be as fast as the 1.7. But I also have a wide angle converter coming for it. So this will probably be my, like, when I'm talking to camera and trying to be serious about communicating something, instead of using the ultra wide, which I'll use for vlogging, this one will, like, my eyes will be in focus and my ears will be starting to go out of focus. I think that will be cool. Lesrian says, hey, just curious, do you know if they make a AC power adapter for the G7? I've been looking and I'm not really finding much. I don't think that they do. I'm Chris Luke says, I have a power adapter for the G7, so yes, that's what the power of community. Apparently, we do have something. So, let's look at the 6500 and maybe just be able to compare a little bit on body sizes for it. So, here we go. Ooh, hello, manuals. Manuals. Woo! Getting in disaster zone. Wow, this is actually my first time ever holding it. The other compromise with this is for photography and even videography, this has a dial here for your front finger and a dial on your thumb. You don't get that here. You've kind of got these two dials, but they're both thumb dials. I don't like that as much. But size-wise, I would say it is slightly... Again, I wish I had this camera doing the recording because I would put it up in your face and we'd be able to look at it and see. It's smaller. For sure it's smaller. It's probably closer to like the GX series on Panasonic. Wow, this thing is actually surprisingly tiny. Surprisingly tiny. Again, I've heard the screen kind of sucks. It's slightly smaller, I would say, than the Panasonic ones. Matt Leal says, what external monitor are you going to get for the 6500? I think I'm going to get the newer NEEWER. Somebody else was telling me about it. It's like in Canada like $175 for a 7-inch monitor. And they use it in a lot of professional settings. This was a professional production company, and they're like, it's still great. Just 720p, but I just need to be able to frame up what I'm doing, so it's going to be great. I'm Chris Lutz says, looks like a battery, but has a wire that comes out a plug on it. That's cool. What camera do you go with? 6500. Yes, an a6500. The most exciting thing I want to check out is this 10 to 18 millimeter optical stabilized ultra wide to see how big it is. Now again, ultra wides require a lot of glass to bend that much stuff in frame and get them back into the camera. So, you know what, size-wise, I would say it's pretty similar to the 714, a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more girth, but weight-wise, it looks good. I've never attached a Sony lens to a Sony body before. I think it rotates the same way, which is good. Some of them are backwards. Oh, no. Ooh. Oh, yeah, there we go. Click, click, click. Here we go. How does that feel? It feels similar. I would just say it feels similar. Weight-wise, I think maybe similar, maybe a little bit heavier. But man, I like the form factor of that. I think it's going to be good. Glazed, sorry for the unrelated question. However, I was wondering if you have any tips on starting a company or business. Follow Gary Vaynerchuk. Follow him. He's way smarter than me and has got a ton of stuff in there. Anyway, that looks pretty good. I wonder if we can get a battery and turn this sucker on. Oh, that's a charger. I wonder if there's any life in this battery. This battery is tiny. Smaller than the G85 or G7 batteries. Kind of surprised about that. How tiny? I guess the camera's pretty small, so makes sense. Did I put that in right? Nope. Definitely didn't. Ah! You guys still hanging out? That first lens attached, yeah, it wasn't very good, was it? Andrew LaValle, check out Gary V. We're on the same page, Andrew. We are on the same page. Let's turn this bad boy on. I think the battery's dead. Won't even turn on. Okay, well, anyway, it's going to be an exciting evening with this camera. Apparently dead. So, yeah, I've got it. It feels good. I'm going to, like, rig it up the same way. The cool thing about Sony, which if you didn't know this, they have this smart hot shoe where you can add things like into it, like a microphone. They make microphones where you don't have to plug it into the microphone port. All the audio and everything comes through the hot shoe, which I think is pretty neat. So I'm going to probably play with this afterwards. I don't think that'll be very exciting. Erickson Pena, I probably butchered that. Do you think it is still possible to work with the G7 for vlogging, or would you recommend jumping ship? Do not jump ship. I did 160 vlogs with the G7 and it worked just fine. The G7 is way more inexpensive than something like Sony. You can still plug a microphone into it, hook up a tripod, and if you can't make good content with the G7, you got other problems. It's a great place to start without spending too much money. Can shoot 4K. I think the picture looks awesome on it. 1080p is great. 4K, obviously, super nice, but all around, great camera. I found the battery life to be pretty good too. You may want to grab a second one, but most days I'd be fine on a single battery. So I think the G7 is such a great place to start. It's got the selfie screen so you can check out what you're doing. Don't switch until you're like, this thing has really stopped me from doing what I need to do. I'm Chris Luke said, I did an OMG face, but YouTube made a silly face. There we go. Matt Leal, G7 is a great camera for vlogging. Just got to work around the focus at times. That's right. And if you have the G7, make sure you've checked out my videos about vlogging settings. I just released one recently where I'm talking about the right focusing mode. I believe that a lot. So, I'm Chris Luke. Yeah, I can't post the link less ran. Look up Panasonic camera charger kit on Amazon. I think Panasonic is great value with excellent quality. I can't stress that enough. Like, just because I'm switching away from Panasonic doesn't mean that I won't continue to recommend it for a ton of people. I think Sony is maybe not the place that you start. It's a place that you get to. Now, obviously, it depends on your requirements and what you're doing, but Panasonic is such a great way to start. The other thing, like, especially if you're into photography or wanting to learn photography, mirrorless is really nice because what you see on here is the picture that you're going to take, and I think something about that ends up being easier to teach than looking through a viewfinder and having to guess with a regular DSLR. Michael Mason, when are you doing a vlog with the Sony? That is a great question, Michael. I'm not sure that it'll be tomorrow, but maybe. It's got to be soon because I want to test this out, and if it's not going to work for me, return it sooner rather than later. So I'm sure you're subscribed to the channel, but I mean, obviously I'm excited about the new camera. I run a company and have some things, so I'm hoping to get to it soon. Straight 6 fan. I've done a ton of research between G7, Sony a6500, 6500, and the Canon M5. It's really hard to beat the G7 an entry-level camera based on price. Yeah, it is. That's the thing. A huge value in that, especially like Black Friday when it was $450 at $500, but you got a $50 gift card, US. That was crazy. Crazy. And you just need something to get started. Honestly, if anybody's like struggling between things, just buy one and start shooting. Just buy one and start shooting. I'm Chris Luke says, it's a bit of a shame that the focus for video isn't the best, but that's really it. Honestly, the only thing I can fault these cameras for is the focus. If they went to a dual system that was actually good, man, they would be just unstoppable, I feel like. But again, it's compromises. Every platform has a compromise. You could throw me any camera and say this is the best camera for vlogging, and I will pick apart probably 3 things that aren't great about it. You just gotta go with something. Straight 6 fan says, I'm just needing to work on my content storytelling better before I dive in. Honestly, that's where any camera will get you started, because the most important thing is the person on screen or the subject on screen of the story. You can have the best equipment in the world. If you have somebody who's not very good at presenting, it's not going to work well. And look at like a guy like Casey Neistat, who tells amazing stories with not the best equipment. Like, there's other people with way better equipment, but he's good at storytelling. Some people may hate him, but I think he's a brilliant storyteller. I'm Chris Luke says, yeah, I got a G7 for $500. I was like, I need to get this. Then I sold all my Canon gear. Yeah, and again, I had all full frame Nikon gear, like $10,000 or $12,000 worth of Nikon gear. I tried a D5500. The focusing was really bad and noisy. And there's a couple other things. I started with the G7 and I fell in love. It was great. Plus, I understand the stock lens is fairly decent on the G7. Yeah, absolutely. It's fine for starting out. Check vlog 007. That was the first vlog I did with the G7. It's shot in 4K on the kit lens. And it's a pretty popular vlog, even though like I was still learning the camera and the focus is going to hunt a little because I just didn't know how to use it. But I did the first like 15 vlogs all on the stock lens. And yeah, it totally works fine. Lestrian, maybe G8 whenever that year will be focus on faster focus system. I hope so, because like I really like Panasonic. The other thing that I really like about Panasonic is Panasonic will send me whatever I want because I've got to deal with them. Panasonic Canada. I'm not going to get the same deal with Sony because I'm a much smaller fish. So I'm probably still going to request some stuff from Panasonic. I think the Panasonic LX10, the little point and shoot, if I had to pick between it and the Sony RX100V, I'm not actually sure what I would pick because the lens on it is actually a good chunk better than the Sony, and the Sony can only do like 5 minutes of 4K before it shuts off, whereas the LX10, it's fine, and I really like it. Doesn't focus as well, but I really, really like that little Panasonic. Yeah, for vlogging, get a setup that is ultra-wide, I'm English TV says, and that is true. The more you can fit in the frame, the more I think it tells the story of what's going on around you. The problem is, like on Panasonic or Sony, there's no inexpensive options for getting an ultra wide angle lens. Like the Sony one in Canada is like $1,000. I think it's like $750 or $800 US. And the same with the Sony, the 10 to 18 millimeter again is like $700 or $800 US. So there's not really like an inexpensive way to do that. Canon, much cheaper. They have like a $300 lens, so that's a nice thing about Canon. If you have a Canon, that 10 to 18 millimeter is quite good. They got a Andrew Valley says, check your Snapchat ASAP. I don't know where my phone is, Andrew, but I will check after we're done. You guys follow me on Snapchat? Justin Rivas. CJC, can I have your G85? No, but here's why. This is actually kind of interesting. Is my business partner, Greg, who, if you guys are just tuning in, I started a company called Pigeon. We help businesses kind of navigate the new world. We both have marketing backgrounds and getting on the social and digital and what you actually need to be doing to be successful in this world. But for him, his content creation is he's going to start like a more local focused like Phil DeFranco show because he's great at going on giant rants and picking things apart. But it's going to be with like a local context focused more on our area. So I need to get a camera for him. So I'm either going to give him the G85 or if somebody buys a G85, I may just get him a different camera that's either slightly cheaper or better for what he's doing. But sorry, you can't have it. I'm Chris Luke. I think they're going to work on focus next. Even the GH5 hype is getting subdued due to focus. I'm sure they know that's next. You know what? I think so. I think they're seeing the reviews and going, oh, this is a problem. Or they're going, you know what? We don't care about YouTubers or people who want autofocus. Our cameras are really about filmmakers who use manual focus. I think that would be a huge mistake if they were thinking that way. Let's hope not. I'm English TV says, doesn't matter which platform, just start with something that is going to capture as much as possible. Absolutely. Straight 6 fan says, Lestrian, also Canon's got to work better on lens support for the M5 and 4K, and Sony needs better manual dials and viewfinder. Agreed. Straight Six fan, as he said, they all have their drawbacks. Quasi Dog, how late is it where you are? It's got to be like, I guess maybe it's midnight. Maybe it's not that late. Quasi Dog says, breaks my heart to see you leave the Panasonic scene, but it makes total sense, to be honest. And I think if you've seen some of my videos where I'm going out of focus, you go, oh yeah, it's kind of annoying. But again, it's not the end of the world. A big part of it, honestly, you guys, is I love trying new things. And so I'm just trying something new, and it'll give me something new to talk about, and we'll talk about some more tech reviews, and I may be back here in like a month going, why did I sell all this stuff because of this reason, this reason, this reason? But the thing is if you're not learning, you're not growing, and I don't think there's, somebody else said they think Sony's going to be a huge mistake for me. And even if it was a mistake, I don't think it's a mistake because I learned a lot in the process and can hopefully help educate other people, move other people forward, and I just love learning and growing. So maybe I don't think I'll regret making the switch, but I may have wished that I didn't. I don't know. I'm English TV says, going to be expensive, but if you want to jump, then do it. If not, then you need to compromise. I suggest the Canon Vixia Mini X as a starter if you don't want to get into interchangeable lenses. I don't even know what that is, but I got to check it out. I think you've talked about it before. Maybe I have checked it out. CJC, hi, worth a shot. Thanks for answering. Love your content. Thank you, CJC. Crazy Dog, I'm on vacation in Quebec at the moment, so it's only 11 p.m. Makes sense. How's Quebec? I hear it's beautiful. I don't speak French, though, so I'd have to go to Montreal. I'm English TV, never be brand loyal unless you find exactly what you want in particular hardware. I think that's really important. And for me, it's hard because, honestly, I could be having my rep at Panasonic be watching this video and being, like, a little bit miffed at me. But I hope not. I hope they understand that I'm not saying that this is a bad camera just for what I want to do. I want to try something different. But yeah, I don't think you should be loyal to any brand if it's not serving you well. Use whatever is going to help make you make the best content and push all these companies that, Canon can't just sit still because a bunch of people love Canon because Sony and Panasonic, other people are coming, and they need the feedback that, hey, we're switching because this part of what you're doing sucks. And Canon not being better in the 4K game sucks for them, and they're going to learn that the hard way. Straight Six fan says, I'm sure for Panasonic to keep their price tag down, they have to make that decision to shave something somewhere, and autofocus is probably part of that. And they may have looked at their business and going, based on what we know of what we're selling, autofocus isn't that big of a deal. But I think they might sell more with it. But absolutely, they gotta make their decisions. But people who are buying a G85, it's not really about the money. Most of those people have the money, so a couple extra $100, I'm sure they would pay. Lesrin says, if I could find an accessory that can make it more easy to use manual focus on the G7, I could make it work perfectly. Honestly, you'll end up getting fast at me. I don't even have to look. I can reach around and just flip it from manual to auto without even really looking, and then obviously using the manual focus on the lens. The other thing too that works actually really well is obviously the touch to focus. You flip it to manual, you touch where you want it to focus, and it's in. But I mean, if you were constantly dialing in and out, then you can find those, the focus things that they attach and they just zip tie to the thing and you're able to dial it in. A pull focus, I can't remember the term, but there's something for it. Spencer Stanley, I really wanted the a6500 with the 10 to 18, but it's too expensive at $3,000 as I'm in Winnipeg. So I picked up the G85 for $1,200 the other day, testing the autofocus, and if it works, I'll keep it. So Spencer, and that's exactly the conversation, because 12 millimeters on the G85 is actually decently wide. Plus that's got in-body image stabilization, and the camera does, and it's just in a completely different ballpark. And so, yeah, that's why it makes sense. Make sure you watch the video I just did. Don't use the eye detection. Use the 1 point and make it fill your face just to release a video on that. I think you'll make it end up working like I did. Honestly, some of the focusing issues I was having was because I flipped to that mode. So maybe I didn't need to switch, but I want to try it out. Sean Bresney says, which camera lens are you switching to? A6500 with the 10 to 18 millimeter f4, a 50 millimeter 1.8 OSS, and a 16 millimeter 2.8. That's what I'm rolling with for now. No selfie screen on this, obviously. Also, what are the other drawbacks? Can't shoot 4K for forever. Bad rolling shutter. But it's going to keep my face in focus, I believe. So I want to try it out, see if that's worth it. Straight Six fan, I currently shoot with a Vixia HR600. It's pretty solid for a $200 piece, but depth of field is the biggest thing I cannot come close to touching with mirrorless or DSLR scene. Absolutely. Makes sense. You guys, we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes with one little hiccup in the middle. I can't believe so many of you guys are watching. commenting, hanging out, 33 watching right now. You guys are awesome. As always, you guys know I respond to your comments as best as I can. It's a little busier with the business, but I'm still always trying to get into there. It just might be slightly more delayed. If there's something specifically you want me to make a video on, leave a comment and let me know. I can't do everything, but I'll try and do as much as I can. I appreciate your guys' support so much. Feel free to share my stuff. Hit those like buttons. Hit those subscribe buttons. Really, really appreciate it. Oh, I like this comment. I am English TV, you guys. This is a good comment. Don't try to keep up with tech people. There will always be newer cameras with better hardware. Right after you purchase a setup, learn how to use what you have and get better. I used to work in an electronics store, and the funny thing is a lot of people who worked at the electronics store never had the nicest equipment because every time that they would want the newest TV, they already knew about the next thing that was coming, so they would wait for the next thing, but by the time the next thing came, they heard about the next thing, so they'd wait for the next thing. And eventually they would never ever buy anything until it was old and on sale. And I think that's crippling as I see so many people that can't make a decision on which camera to buy because they're waiting for this one or hearing for that one, or they're waiting for this feature or that feature, or this one isn't as good as for that one, and this one. Just buy something, start shooting, start honing your skills. It's mostly about your presentation skills anyway and storytelling. So we're getting some good comments here. I keep wanting to wrap up, but CJC says, so Spencer, I'm in the same boat, except I think I might take the G7 and gimbal over just a G85 and a lens. And absolutely start somewhere you can tell good. It's not like the G85 is going to let you tell these amazing stories that the G7 can't. Johnny B3K, follow focus is a term you are looking for. A follow focus for the dial thing that you can add on there, make it easier to follow, much easier. Jonathan Rockwell, LOL, yep, still here. Guys, don't you have something better to do? That's funny. Justin, where would you go next if you end up not liking the 6500? If I don't like the 6500, there's a new A7 III coming out, which isn't like the R or the S, and I think it might end up being like a 4K shooter with just a few less features, but provided it has a good focusing. I might look at that, but then the lenses get so expensive. That's where I might look, or I could see myself going, forget 4K. Maybe I'll do Canon, build up the guns. I don't know, honestly. It would be tough. If this doesn't work out, it would be tough. That's why I'm not actively selling this G85 so hard, because honestly, I know I can tell stories with it. So it's a good question. I'd have to do a bunch more research. It would be tough. Oh. Jeff Brown says, I have YouTube Red. Is there monetization built around live videos? I think you can pay to have a comment pinned for a little bit. And afterwards? I don't know. That's a good question. Chris Luke, the wait for the best gear syndrome. Absolutely. So damn crippling, I'm English TV says. People think they need the newest and best, but you don't. Just start creating. Absolutely. CJC, I hear with the in-body image stabilization, but a gimbal was low-key future-proofing if I move on from the G7. And that's a good point. Like a gimbal is smoother than in-body image stabilization. You got to carry the gimbal with you, but yeah, obviously you can switch bodies, and so that ends up being good. Straight Six Fan says, Justin, I've lurked before, watched for your vids. Glad I came in for a bit. This was fun. Thanks for doing this. You're so welcome, man. If you're going to bed, have a great night. Really appreciate it. Lost Fart. Great stuff, Justin. Glad to see you're progressing so fast. What's your beef with Nikon? Haha. Cole, a.k.a. Lost Fart. The problem with Nikon is that they're just not set up for video. Their lenses don't have stepping motors, and so they hunt a lot and they make noise. And Nikon's kind of starting to do it, but Nikon's behind the game in video. I loved using them for photo. Loved it. But yeah, video-wise, they're just not in the same planet as even Canon or Sony or Panasonic. CJC, you're the best, Justin LMAO. Stop asking questions, let you answer or wrap up. 306 Media Productions. Oh Lord, that haircut, right? Right? It's like a 80s army recruit, and there's got to be a term for it. But I want to do something different, but with my sides being shaved, I basically have to do this until I can grow everything out, and I'll have a good haircut in 2 months. I promise. Funny stuff, though. I'm English TV. If you want to be on camera, don't go with the gimbal at first. Oh, yeah, right. If you want to be on camera, but 306 Media Productions. I'm also going to be switching to Sony, looking at the a6300. Are you going A7 route? I have a6500 here, which I'm going to try out. A7, I love the idea of it, but it's just so much money, and I don't think it ends up providing that much more benefit for video. Obviously on the photo side, that extra depth of field, or if you're making really cinematic stuff, sure, shooting in low light. But for like my vloggy, techie, inspirational style videos, I think a 6500 is going to be great. In-body image stabilization is nice for vlogging. That's why I picked it over the 6300. Didn't really care about the touchscreen as much. Lost Fire Degree, thanks for advice. I think I'll head to Canon or Sony soon. I don't think you'll regret it, Cole. 306 Media Productions. Also, don't get me wrong, the haircut, it looks good. Thank you. It's still like styled by the stylist, which I never liked the stylist styles as much as I like my own styles. But yeah, something different. I can still just wear a cap and my beard ends up, I can look cool. So, are we good? We still got 38 people on here. This is like so cool. I love hanging out with you guys. I appreciate you following along and supporting. Something else I just want to say is, like, don't give up, you guys. Like, there's times where I look and I see like, oh, so-and-so has 1 million subscribers and I've only got 2,800 subscribers or whatever it's at now. But I remember back when I had 8 subscribers and I was like, man, like, what does it look like to get to 100 subscribers? And then you get 200 and you get 300 and you get 500 and then you cross 1,000. I remember how big deal 1,000 subscribers was, but it still wasn't enough. I was still like, 1,000 is still super lame compared to 100,000 or 1 million. I think 1 million is the number that like I'd ideally like to hit. Obviously, a long ways to go, but yeah, just like you just got to keep creating, keep pushing, and be thankful. I'm so thankful for the 36 people that are watching right now. Like, so thankful for you guys. And honestly, this wouldn't be any fun if I had 1 million subscribers, because we wouldn't actually be able to like read these comments and chat. It'd be all over the place. And so I really enjoy where we're at right now. And I really enjoy you guys watching and following along. Andrew LaValle, hashtag last comment. It's just like one of those things just feels like hard to end. Andrew LaValle, darn. Oh, what is he saying? Last comment. Zarak Ritter, I just finished editing a job listening to your advice. Keep doing that, bro. Congrats for the cameras and the good job. I will find time to edit my vlogs. Ha ha ha. Okay, you guys, I see my wife and my son are home from a late night out. I'm going to wrap up the live stream to go hang out with them. You guys are amazing. I'm sure we should do this more often. So, we'll do that. Hey, do you want to come say hi to all the people?
Hi.
Hi, this is Odin. Oh, is Megan going to come on camera too? Do you guys know these guys? If you've seen the vlogs, characters in the vlogs. Move forward, the lighting. Anyway, we're going to go hang out. You guys are cool. I'm going to stop this live stream now. Thank you so much for hanging out. What? Call of Duty? You want to play Call of Duty? No. Okay, cool. Okay, bye, you guys. Oh, yeah. Oh, this thing's warm.
That must have been long, because Tim showed me when you
It
started
was
it.
long. It is long. You guys are cool. I'm still trying to stop this, but I hit the wrong button. So now you can really see my muscles. Oh, yeah, jacked. So jacked right now. Oh, I think I have to go in here and actually stop the broadcast. It sounds stop streaming.
Awkward.